Good afternoon. I'm hoping there's somebody out there. This is our first live, so I'm anticipating there might not be a huge amount of people watching, but if you are there and you can hear me, give me a thumbs up or a comment in the comment box or one of those little hearts that I know there's somebody out there listening. There is a little delay, but you will get to hear me eventually. A little delay, I think it's about possibly a minute and a half, but we will connect to you straight away. I believe there's one of you watching at the moment. To what? I'm back again. We're just, it's my first time, so we're just checking, and I can see some hearts coming through. So hopefully somebody's from Berkshire, and I'm hoping Sarah has sent me a message. So Sarah Woods, she's not very far away. She sent a message to say she's sitting and watching and she's on her TV, which is a bit scary. We'll just wait a couple of minutes to make sure that there are messages coming through. Thank you. I can see hello now. Well done. Thank you for joining me. I'm assuming that you can also see me and you can hear me quite clearly. If not, comment in the box below. Thank you all. So today's live demonstration, I've mentioned already, this is the first time that I've done a live, and you've probably noticed that I've now got very short hair. I felt that the spring was coming and I needed a new change and a new style, so we've gone with a short haircut, although it's probably a bad mistake because it is absolutely freezing. The sun is shining, so it's a really nice day in South Wales, but it's still quite cold and I can really feel it on the back of my neck. Now I am periodically going to read the comments, but I am here on my own, so if I miss a comment, I will respond to it after the live session. And if there's anything that you don't understand, I can recap on it at a later date. But I'm hoping that every now and again we'll check to see if there's any questions being asked. And if you have got a question, try and write it in capital letters, and then it'll be clearer for me to view, and I will notice that there's a comment or a question being asked. I'm imagining that when I get into the throw of arranging the flowers, I might forget to look back at the comments, but there's quite a few of you, quite a few names that I recognise, so lovely to see you all. Now the plan today is for me to do some small arrangements. I'm thinking it will probably last about an hour, but I suppose it depends how much I talk. And I've chosen small designs that I think you could quite easily copy, sort of springtime feeling, a little bit of an Easter feel. It is of course the Easter time here in the UK, it's the end of February, so I've picked quite a lot of seasonal flowers, and I've also picked some flowers from the garden, and I foraged for some bits and pieces. So hopefully there's a real range of ideas for you, but they are small. So if you're expecting that I'm going to be doing really big designs, that's not going to happen today. Because it's the first live, I thought I'd keep everything fairly simple so that if anything goes wrong and if for any reason I didn't connect to you, it wouldn't be too much of an error. Now, if you're new here, then my name is Sharon. I'm a commercial florist. I trained as a florist way back in sort of 1989. I went to college and I bench trained, and I trained the old-fashioned way. So I went through proper formal education and I sat exams at the end of each year. And then I went on and I sat 2 higher level floristry qualifications, which are both degree levels. When I sat them, it was called an intermediate certificate and a national certificate. Now they have slightly different names, but I've pretty much got the highest qualifications you can get, and I'm also a trained teacher. So hopefully I'm guessing that you wouldn't be here otherwise, that you enjoy the way that I explain things and the way that I teach things. I'm just going to check the screen every now and again. Welcome to those of you who just joined. I hope you're liking the new haircut. So I'm aiming today at those of you who might want to know small little arrangements. What you need to remember is that anything that I do that is small, you just scale it up. Use bigger flowers, more flowers, and a bigger container. So if the design I'm doing is too small for what you want to learn, just take the knowledge and the mechanics and the hints and tips so that you can upscale your design. I'm keeping everything manageable, just in case anything went wrong. Right, so let's just sort of get started. I've got 3 of exactly the same containers to start with. These are small containers that have come from IKEA, and I've chosen IKEA really because I went there for a day out and I thought that maybe it was something that all parts of the world might have access to. And it's a really small zinc bucket, probably about 4 inches in height, maybe even 3 inches in height. But you could repeat this style in a bigger container just by using bigger flowers and more quantity of flowers. And I'm going to do 3 different arrangements in the same container so that you can get to understand how versatile containers can be. If you're part of my Facebook group, which is called Sharon's Innovations Group, you'll find that on Facebook. Don't send me a personal request, look for the private group. You need to answer 3 questions to join, but there are often some hints and tips in that little page as well. And I talk to you about containers and sizes and shapes. So if you want more information, go over there, Sharon's Innovations Group on Facebook, and we'll be able to build up sort of big community on there. I'm trying to grow the community so other flower arrangers and florists help. Now, mentioning flower arrangers and florists, most of what I do on the YouTube channel is aimed at flower arrangers for a hobby. That was the area that I thought there was lacking on YouTube. There weren't really any lessons being taught for home flower arrangers. There's a lot of information out there for florists, and I am a florist and I do teach floristry, but a lot of what I do is with supermarket flowers to encourage you to all have a little go. So I've got a variety of flowers today, but I'm going to start with these little zinc containers, and the first one I'm going to do is in front of me, and I'm going to talk you through what I've done, but this one is going to be foam free. So I'm starting with one that doesn't have any foam in it. And if you haven't been following me for a while, Floral foam is a single-use plastic, and we are, excuse me a sec, trying to move away from using too much floral foam, but I really do appreciate that if you're a shop florist, you still are using a huge amount of foam. But what I've done here, so this is the zinc bucket, and I have got a few different cameras which I can change the angle of. So what I'm going to do is just slightly bring you in a bit closer. So this is the same zinc bucket as this one, but it doesn't have any floral foam in it. Exactly the same size. Let's just go back. So I'll swap back and forth every now and again, and I'm going to fill that with water in just a second. But what I've done, to give you a different idea and a different feel, I've covered it with some cellophane, and that could work really well for a little plant. So I've got a pretty little narcissi. If you want to do cheap table centres, gifts for the school teachers, thank you gifts, gifts for people that are unwell, that's a really easy way of zhuzhing up, tarting up a container, and you could wrap the cellophane directly around the plant if you haven't got one of these little pots. So what I've done is I've cut myself 2 sheets of cellophane. It doesn't have to be 2 sheets, it could be more sheets, you could put tissue paper, but I've cut myself 2 small squares. and then I've sat the pot in the middle, but you could do it with just a flower plant, just a plant. And let's get that in the centre. So what I've done, let's get that other camera in a minute. I've sat my little plant in the middle, and then all you need to do is bring the sides up of the cellophane, and then you've got a really nice decorated plant for not a huge amount of money. And then you can use raffia or ribbon, string, anything like that, just to tie around the outside. Now quite often if you're looking for a gift, especially if you've got school children, it can be quite expensive buying gifts. And that's just a very simple and quick way of decorating any type of round container. Could be a bottle of wine, could be a box of chocolates. Very, very simple. And that's basically what I've done here to give me a different colour and a different style to this single container that I'm going to repeat 3 times. Then I've got some chicken wire. So the green chicken wire there has been rolled into a ball, and that's what's going to hold my flowers. So if you haven't done arranging for a while, if you don't use floral foam, which is this one, we often use wire netting or chicken wire. And really, a lot of people think it's a new invention, but this is what was used before foam was invented in the 60s. So again, we'll have a look at it up close. So that's the chicken wire. That's going to sit in my container, this bit. And the nest effect on the top is for added decoration, and it's also going to help support my flowers. So that is going to sit in my little container, and it's given me a support for my flowers and a bit of extra Easter springtime look. I wouldn't at this point add my water, but I'm thinking that if I'm tipping it back and forth for you to see, I'll leave the water out until the end. Otherwise we're going to make a bit of a mess. Right, now I don't see any questions. Thank you, there's lots of you here. There's 60 of you here now. My son said I'd only get 2 viewers, so I'm going to tell him later I had 60 people. Right, so this is a little bit of Pittosporum. You might have this in the garden. Sometimes it's in mixed bunches in the supermarket, and I cut it so it's a little bit taller than my bucket. I've got 3 pieces. 3s and 5s are better than 2s, but any foliage is better than nothing. And I'm going to feed it through so that I've got quite an even distribution, and that wire netting, that chicken wire is holding it into place. But so is this vine, and I've forgotten to tell you, this is Muhlenbeckia vine, but you could use honeysuckle or clematis, whatever you've got in the garden that's quite flexible, particularly if you're cutting your shrubs back. It acts as what we call an armature. It's like a support or a collar to hold your flowers into place. If you haven't got the chicken wire, you could put sellotape over the top of your bucket, or you could just fill a container with as much greenery as you can, because that will support your flowers. And I'm aiming to do an all-round flower design today, so quite traditional, nothing too taxing, something you could do with your family members if you've got children, grandchildren staying with you. You could go out and forage and collect a few little bits and pieces. This one I'll talk to you about in a minute. Now here I have a really lovely cotoneaster or cotoneaster, depending on which way you pronounce it. And this grows over the wall on the road that I live in, or live on. And the reason I chose it was because it's got this beautiful brown tinge to it. It's normally green. Let's have a look at that in the close-up camera. So it's got a lovely brownish colour to it, and I thought it's going to link really beautifully with my vine around the outside. And the reason it's gone brown is because it's the winter and the plant almost pulls in all the nutrients and the sugar into the base of the plant to keep it, to protect it through the cold winter. And as the sort of nutrients leave the leaf, turns this beautiful shade of brown. And what I'm going to do with this is flex it a little bit so it's curved, and I'm going to add it into my water. I took all the foliage off the bottom, and I'm going to bend. Ooh, good job I didn't fill that with water, otherwise we would have had a right accident. And I'm going to bend it around and attach it to that little framework of the vine. So I've got a wire by my side. This is a lightweight florist gauge wire. Oops, that just sprung out. We'll get that back in. So that structure that I created with the vine, the brown vine, hopefully will hold that into place. And it brings me a lovely texture. I'll fiddle with it and then I'll show you it close up as well. It's going to give me a lovely colour link with the vine. And the vine is there for two reasons. It's there for decoration, and it's there to give me some texture. That, what's that called? Cellophane. The cellophane is quite thick and glittery or shiny, so it gives me a duller contrast. And with the weight of the flowers, it will add a bit of extra support as well. But if you're in an area where you have lots of greenery, if you've got a lovely garden, let's just swap cameras, then sometimes you're unsure of what you can do with long lengths of greenery. So that one, that could be ivy, it could be clematis with a flower on, or honeysuckle with a flower on in the spring. But it adds a lovely bit of texture and a different shape. And because I've picked it, it's free as well. So that's beneficial. Now this one, which is snapped, is Statice limonium. It's one of the Statice family, and sometimes this can have quite a strong ocean fishy sort of smell to it. Its common name is sea lavender. A very similar version of it will grow on the edge of the sea, like sea drift. And if you get that horrible smell, just spritz it with a bit of Febreze, or you can put some salt in the water, which helps to pull out that smell. But this one is quite pleasant. And I've cut it short so that I can tuck this in all different sort of areas. I'm not looking to create anything too formal and too patterned. I want this to be loose, relaxed, informal, a little bit whimsical, and we're going to go all the way around with that. Again, this could be gyp if you can't get hold of this particular Statice, and this one will dry beautifully. So if you do get it probably from a florist shop or from the florist supplies, then you can dry it and it will last for ages. And I've gone round in a lovely circular shape. I'm just going to swap. I think I'm very clever. I've got 3 cameras on the go. If we look at it here, I'm lacking a bit of the colour in this area here. So I'll go over there. I think I'm so clever. I'm just hoping nothing goes wrong, because if something goes wrong, I won't be able to find you again and you'll be gone forever. So, I don't think there are any questions as yet. Oh, thank you very much. Somebody had said they love my hair. I do like to change my hair. I get bored quite often. So we're short for a change. Right, so that's given me what I refer to as a cushion. That's now going to support my flowers and hold them into place. And I'm going to go with some gerbera to start with. And I have said the majority of what I've got is fairly seasonal. But what I liked about the gerbera was the colour. I think this variety is Moe. But this has come from my local supplier, and they don't often label the colours. And I wanted to talk you through gerbera a little bit because they're quite hard to look after. I don't tend to wire my gerbera because I've conditioned them properly. But if you are buying them from the supermarket, you might need to run a wire down the outside of the stem. Now I'm going to swap cameras so we've got a better view. So this is your gerbera, and what tends to happen is this stem part here can become weak and sometimes fall over. What I would suggest you don't do is don't insert the wire. Let's try and get it by my cardie. Don't insert this into the head of the gerbera, which is what you will see most florists teach you. By doing that, you're inserting bacteria and germs into the gerbera. So the best thing to do is make a hook. I don't know if you can pick that up. Make a hook the top. Now if you're part of my Facebook group, I'll put a close-up of this as a picture. So, oh, I can't hook it back over. Right, so what I've done is I've hooked it around the top, and then I'm going to run the wire down the stem. So it's the same method as you might have seen other florists do, but I don't insert the wire into the stem end. So that's one of my tips, and one of the reasons I wanted to use gerbera. I really hate it when I see other florists sticking a big chunky wire up the end. If I came along and stuck a wire in your leg, you'd soon have a problem with your leg. The gerbera is a fresh living flower. Treat it with respect and be gentle with it, and it will last you much longer. All you're doing is opening up a wound. So hook it over, and then I'm aiming to have them in a fairly similar height. It's a little bit difficult to feed it through the different layers, but you get that lovely support from the chicken wire. And I'm going to go round. I've picked myself 5 gerbera. We'll pop one in the middle, and then I'll go around the outside. Now I've actually gone round with 4, which is probably what I would tell you not to do normally. Don't go around the outside with 4, because 4 tends to make your arrangement a little bit square. Can you see visually now I've ended up, if I turn it that way, I've ended up now with 4 points, which makes it look a bit square. So don't do what I do what I say. Use 3 instead, but I've got them here, so we'll use them. Let's just get rid of my rubbish. And then I've chosen a really pretty seasonal daffodil. This actually came from Lidl, which I thought was really pretty, and it's a soft colour. It's a nice contrast against the peach. It's almost like a peaches and cream colour combination. Now, the theory is that you shouldn't cut daffodils and mix them with other flowers, but that just means you're restricting the design of arrangements that you're doing. It does slightly impair the quality of the gerbera, but what I would do is change the water in about an hour. So give that, the sap that comes out of the bottom of the daffodil is really sort of sticky. Give that an hour to drain out and then change the water, and that will help your daffodils last a little bit longer. So a really pretty, or well, I think it's really pretty. You might not think so. You might think it's a bit too easy to do. But the idea today is to encourage you to arrange flowers. You don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have to have a range of big containers. It's all about being mindful, relaxing, enjoying the experience, and sitting down and having a little bit of fun. So, not perfectly symmetrical. I don't want things balanced on either side. I'm not worried that things don't perfectly match. I could probably go in with another small flower as well, but I'm going to leave it at that for today. If you've got any other type of flowers, you could do it with irises. Tulips would be lovely. And that is my first little design for today's live. Remember now, if you want to change that water in an hour's time, once the daffodils have exuded all that sort of sticky sap, it will help benefit your flowers. I'll just swap to the camera and bring it in a little bit closer. Now this camera is, the colour, it doesn't work quite as well on this. This almost looks like it's white, but very natural, simple and very pretty. I like that, and I hope you like that first one. So that's design number one. I said they were small and simple, something that you can all copy at home. Right, let's just get rid of that one and bring this one back. Oh, now then, there's a tip to give you before I even start. So these are heuchera. I've picked these this morning from the garden, and to remember to use them, to make sure that I didn't forget I had them, I sat them on top of my foam like this to make sure that I didn't forget to show you. This one I stuck in the floral foam, just coincidence, and you can see how that's taken up water, but these haven't at all. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to snip these, give them a fresh cut on the bottom. Oh, and I'm going to sit them in there while I make the arrangement, and they might perk back up a bit, and I can talk about them later on. But if you've got a garden and you've got plenty of space in your garden, heucheras are an amazing plant to have because the colours are absolutely beautiful. You can use them on the front side or the underside, and this sort of peachy colour I felt went really well with those gerbera. Right, let's just have a quick look. Okay, no questions that I can see. Right, so today we are going, let me just check I've picked up the right container before I go any further. Yeah, we have. So today, the second design is the same container, but this time we've got some floral foam. And what you will see with this one, as opposed to this one, is that the foam is below the container and the foam is above the container. And if you've been watching me for a while, you should know below the container means the design is going to be more modern with less material in it. Above the container means it's going to be more traditional because I'm going to bring flowers out at the side. So this one, because my foam is below the container, I can't bring any material out at the side. I can't get it in that vertical, no, that horizontal position. I can bring it in from the side upwards, but I can't get those side placements. And this is one of the mistakes a lot of beginners make. If you're making something modern and contemporary with less flowers, use a smaller piece of foam. When you're doing something traditional that has lots of greenery, lots of different flowers, use a bigger piece of foam and raise it above the edge of the container. Right, okay, so today, oh, I tell you what I've just forgotten to do as well. Hang on a minute. I had some very pretty little wooden Easter eggs, which we're going to sit in here. So before I move on, I'll add those in there. And what I will do is, if you're part again of the Facebook group, I'll photograph everything and I'll put it on the Facebook group, and then you can have a look. If you're not part of the Facebook group, you don't have to pay anything. It's a free group. It's called Sharon's Innovations, and you can join at any time. Just find me on Facebook. And this time, because I did a round shape with the last design, this time I'm going to go upright. And I have still got gerbera. Again, I want you to understand that you don't have to have different containers for different shape arrangements. You don't have to have a huge selection of flowers. You can create beautiful designs with a minimal quantity of flowers as well. And what I've also got is this that I picked up yesterday. I think it was in Home Bargains. Home Bargains or B&M Bargains. Shall I put my glasses on and then I may be able to read the label? B&M Bargains. So if you're in the UK, we have a shop called B&M Bargains, and this was reduced from £10 to £5, and I'm not planning on using it as a wreath because it's a door wreath of some description. I'm planning on taking all these little bits off because I thought the colour with my gerbera was really lovely, and I felt that for £5 I was getting quite a lot of material that I could use in my arrangement. So I'm going to take that apart, and that will probably keep reappearing on the YouTube channel. I'll make different designs with it. Most of them are dried, some of them are artificial, so I thought that was quite a good bargain. So if you're in the UK, rush off to Home Bargains and see what you can get. Okay, so let's see what we've got. I'm going to start with my gerbera, and this time I'm going to do a tall, thin arrangement, like a bit like a line arrangement. So let's look for, now you can see with that one, can you see how floppy it is on the top? Now that really does need wiring. What I would probably do with that is recut it and recondition it rather than use it when it's floppy, because that isn't really going to do any justice in my design. And as a commercial florist, I wouldn't want to send that out to a customer because I know it's not going to survive. So don't go anywhere. I'm just going to grab another one that's straight. In 2 seconds. There we are. So not only today have I got a new haircut, but I've also got a new dress. And I do think I should be in a hoedown, or I should be in a little house in the prairie. So I'm not quite sure whether it's my style, but I did like it when it was hanging up in the shop. Now, traditionally, we would go twice the height of our container to make an arrangement. But because I'm going quite tall and narrow, I'm going to go a little bit longer or a bit taller. So I'm probably going to go about 3 times the height, which is more European style, European rules rather than British traditional flower arranging. So what I'm going to do with this gerbera is go quite tall, and I'm going to do it by eye. I'm not going to measure it. I'm going to guess, and I'm going to come slightly off centre. Now with a gerbera stem is soft stemmed, so cutting it at an angle to go into your phone doesn't really work because it weakens the structure of the bottom and you don't have enough strength in the stem. So I'm cutting them straight across. If you're arranging them in water or you're conditioning them, you can cut them at an angle. Well, what I'm going to do is bring them down here towards the front in a sort of staggered pattern. So I think without putting my glasses on properly, I've been asked about conditioning. I'll talk about conditioning in just a sec. So I'm going to bring my base flower out slightly at the bottom so that it gives me that profile, that front and back that I talk about, and it also gives me a lovely, what we call a focal line in floristry from front to back. Right, I've just been asked about gerbera, so stay where you are a minute and I'm going to get a box. Now, as a commercial florist, let's just move this out of the way, we get gerberas more often than not delivered in a box. You can get them in plastic wrapping, but they're not as good quality as the ones that come in a box. And the reason they come in the box is because you condition them by standing them, or hanging them I should say. You hang them above the water so you can just see the water dripping off the bottom. So we have specially designed buckets where we can suspend, can you see that? Where you can suspend the cardboard box. And what that does is it means these are freely hanging above the water. They're not being restricted by the shape of the bucket or the vase. And we always use gerbera flower food, and that's quite important because it's a special flower food that gets the water in really quickly and hydrates those gerberas as fast as possible. If you're a home arranger and you have gerberas from the supermarket, then I would get yourself like a cooling rack or put some sellotape over a deep bucket, so that instead of your flowers sitting at the bottom of the bucket where they then curve and the heads flop over, they're suspended. So suspended or hanging is the proper method for gerbera. If you've got gerbera tablets, which are commonly referred to as Viagra in the trade, then you can just put the tablet in the bottom of a bucket and it does help to support the head. But if you do it properly, you get a really straight solid stem. And with gerberas, they're very susceptible to bacteria, so you need a really clean vase, clean bucket and clean tools. I'm going to make that shorter. Clean tools and equipment. So don't cut with a dirty knife or a dirty scissors. Always make sure that everything is really clean. And I'm doing what we call a focal line. So I'm bringing my gerbera down from a tall placement down to the focal point at the bottom. And if you're in college learning floristry or flower arranging, it's a good chance this is what you will do first when you're arranging flowers. You could really easily now just put some foliage around the base, and then you would cover your mechanics quite easily. You could use that vine that I used in the first arrangement, but it's quite simple to do. That could be carnations, roses, but with just 5 flowers, you've got quite a large and quite impressive arrangement. This one is some type of catkin, not quite sure which one, but I wanted a little bit of softness now to break up the quite harsh lines there of the gerbera. So I'm going to look to see which way they are angled, and I think they go beautifully. What I don't want to do is, if I put it in this position, so if I just hold that there, let me just move that so you can see it more clearly. Ooh. If I put it in this position, your eye is being brought out here, and we don't want that because your eye is being made to go into the distance where there isn't anything interesting to look at. So what I want to do is reverse it or turn it round so that the shape of the flower is coming inwards. It's not quite, let's just hold it back a bit further. Now my line is coming inwards, and then it picks up my gerbera. Hopefully, I don't know if I'm too far away for you to see that one. That is a curve that brings, it's a line that brings your eye back into the arrangement, and it's pointing at your gerbera, and then your eye will follow down to the bottom. We don't want to send your eye away from the arrangement. The flowers are what we're trying to look at. And then I've got a few little bits and pieces to add some colour and some texture. And again, it's something very small, very simple. I don't have a huge quantity of flowers. I haven't spent a lot of money on what I've got. But this is quite fussy. It's quite a fussy texture. So I'm going to bring in the other fussy texture on the other side so that I don't have all the fussy bits and pieces next to one another. Much better to spread it out. And then we can put something that's contrasting behind the fussy foliages. Now these are garden foliages from the UK. This is begonia or elephant's ear. You probably get them somewhere else. I didn't mean to imply that only the UK has them. And this has done the same thing as the brown foliage we looked at the beginning. Green is its natural colour when it's photosynthesising properly. Then when it gets cold and there's frost around, the plant retracts all its goodness and the leaves turn this lovely sort of brown colour. And I thought this went so well with my peachy coloured carnations. And I've only got 2 of these, so these are going to fit in at the back. Helps to bring some depth by bringing the line backwards. And it's a bit of a contrast. Let me just move it slightly. Bit of a contrast against the fussiness of that willow. Right, okay, so Susan has asked a very good question. She said that she gets confused while buying gerbera from her wholesalers. Sometimes they're in 15s and sometimes they're in 20s. Sometimes they're in 30s, 45s and 60s. And I think they might come in 90s as well. And it is generally the head size. Although it can also be that if the grower has too many available and they wrap them in plastic wraps, it's because they're trying to get rid of excess stock. And sometimes it's just that they sell them in, it's not necessarily to do the head size, it's the pack-in size. Commercial florists, if you're doing a big job, you'll need lots of gerberas. If you're a smaller florist, then you might want a box with less in them. Sometimes the boxes with less in them are more expensive than the boxes with more in them because it's taken them longer to package. So generally, if there's less quantity, it's normally a bigger size gerbera. But these are mini gerberas. I don't use big gerberas very often. I always find that the mini gerbs suit more designs. So a mini gerbera and then a big gerbera. Hello, good morning to whoever's just joined me. Right, so I've put a bit of weight at the back with the begonia leaves, and I'm not adding anything extra to the height apart from this very, very small piece of birch, and that's going to come up. It's not birch, it's beech, and that's going to come up on the opposite side. And ideally, I'm doing that same effect and bringing the line, the visual line that is creating, back into the middle. And then I'm going to use these little bits and pieces that are in this ring down at the base to create a bit of visual weight there at the bottom. Isn't that a lovely colour with that gerbera? So this will give me some texture at the bottom and a different colour. It's going to help cover my foam. And if you haven't got these little dry bits and pieces like I have, then you can use small bits of greenery from the garden. Let's bring you in close because we haven't been in close for a little while. So little gerberas and all this beautiful, this is artificial, it's almost like a silk. But the good thing with this is that if you invest in a few bits and pieces that are artificial, and you'll be able to use them time and time again in different arrangements. So we haven't quite covered the foam, if I just show you in that position there. But from a distance, we've got quite a nice arrangement. Nice bit of height, interesting colours and textures. And now I'm going to see if we've resurrected these heucheras, and by magic, they have almost come back to life. So what have I been, 5 or 10 minutes? And straight away they've taken up water and they're now plumped up, and we call this turgid in the industry. They've taken up water really quickly and they're now strong enough for me to use in the design. So we've saved them, and I'm going to use these to help cover my foam, bring in a little bit of extra shape and texture, and give me a flatter surface that's more peaceful and more resting to the eye than those very busy pieces of dried bits and pieces. I can't name them because I don't know what they are. This one looks like ruscus. And then I've got that final one. And that one is design number 2. Now that has, because there's nothing at the back, I tell you what I can do, just bear with me 1 second. If I get some cardboard, there, look at that. You can see the shape and everything so much better now, but you can see now why I've curved that inwards, because it brings your eye back in and it makes those shapes far more clear to see. I'll keep that by my hand because we get that out every now and again. Now I could do with a little bit of extra greenery at the back. I'm probably going to fill in with some moss. I don't want to make the arrangement really fussy and cluttered. I'm just really gently going to add in a bit of the darker coloured moss because that's going to help pick up on the colours in the arrangement. So a little bit taller than twice the height, but I think that's really pretty. And I'm going to answer, there is a question about gerbera, so I'll have a look at that. Right. How much water do you need to condition? Right, okay, very good question. I'll just get my things together for the next design and we'll talk about that one. So gerberas have got lots of little hairs on the outside of the stem, so they don't like deep water. So for the first 12 hours or so, when they arrive here with me, we put them in fairly deep water. that hydrates them quickly. And then when we know they're fully hydrated and they've come back to life and the head is nice and plump, then we put them into shallow water. Otherwise, all those little hairs collect all the bacteria in the water and they get soggy. It's a bit like if you leave something sitting in too much water, they go very soggy and then the stem will rot. So 1 inch or 2, any soft stem flowers, a very minimal amount of water on the bottom. Change it regularly, make sure the vase is nice and clean. And when you're buying gerbera, let's just get the angle right. Make sure that this centre part of the gerbera is nice and fresh looking, no damage, no mould showing, and it's a nice sort of vibrant green colour, and that will help you in the future. Sorry, I just got a visitor. I'm live. I'm on YouTube. She's going to come in anyway, you can see. Right, okay, so let's see what we've got next to do. I'm going to be doing like a horizontal arrangement this time rather than going up. So again, you get to see a range of colours and shapes of arrangement. Now typically I got a friend has come to visit me just as I'm about to talk you through design number 3. So let's get her to come in a minute. Oh, she's ignoring me now. Right, so this time I'm changing the colour combination and I'm going with lilac and purple because, oh, you can't come in, I'm on YouTube. You can't come in, I'm live on YouTube. You'll have to come back. That's all right. Ta-ra. She's going to love me. She's come to visit me for the day now and I've kicked her out. Right, so we've done peach. Now I'm going to go with some hellebores, which I've picked from my own garden. Again, it's a spring flower and I felt that there were quite important factors and information I could tell you about hellebores. But I'm going to go horizontally this way. So we've gone vertically, now I'm going to go over to one side and I'm going to pick up this time on the silver colouring with some silver birch. And these have come from my own garden and they get better and better every year. I absolutely love them. But they can be a bit temperamental and difficult to arrange. Again, they're really soft stemmed, but they don't have such a hairy stem as the gerbera. And the best way to condition these is once you've picked them, so I've got a few here, is to wrap them quite tight in some paper. Keep the heads nice and straight. Wrap them, brown paper, newspaper, anything that you might have in the house. Use a scissors, again, or a knife to cut the bottoms. Cut them at an angle and place them in really deep water. So almost the opposite to what we do with sunflowers. And then because the heads have been supported and they're nice and straight, then it will take up the water and keep those heads nice and straight as well. I have conditioned them slightly differently for today's video. I didn't wrap them tight in paper because I wanted them to curve a little bit. So I wanted to get the natural curve out of the hellebores. So I've just conditioned them in a vase of water, just like this, so that the weight of the flower droops over slightly. I'm just going to move that one, excuse me. So today's, or the next arrangement is going to be the hellebore. What I'm also going to show you, but in the close-up camera, is, let's see if we can pick that up. Now, in the middle of the flower there is the seed head. Hopefully you can see that. You can see it in that one there as well. And generally when the seed head starts to form, the flowers are a better quality and the condition of them is better to pick them from the garden. If you pick them when they're too young and too fresh, they don't really hold up and it's almost a waste picking them. If you're buying them from the wholesalers, you will get hellebores that have been picked a little bit too early and you might lose a few with the bunch, but generally speaking, look for the ones that have that seed head, and they will last exceptionally well for you. Okay, so I'm going to go in that horizontal position. Normally, again, we would go twice the length of our container, and twice the length is probably to about here. But I'm going to go a little bit longer, and I'm going to angle, oh, I don't know if I like that. Let's straighten it up. And I'm going to go not quite as long as that sort of length there. And then all these little bits that I've cut off can come over to one side. So a bit more of a modern design. But using quite a traditional flower, so hopefully that's going to work. Same container again, but you can see with this one I've raised the foam above the container, which gives me the ability to come out sideways, and I'm going to just bring the silver to start with out on one side. Let's just slide over this way a little bit, so it's just on that one side, so an asymmetrical design this time. Whereas everything else we've done has been balanced on both sides, so it's been more symmetrical. And then on this side, I'm going to use a foliage that I can grow really easily in the garden. This is Fat's Hedera. I have used this quite a lot on YouTube. And it's a cross between the Fatsia, which is those really big leaves. So that's a Fatsia. And an ivy. So it's a cross between this one and an ivy. The reason I'm not using this is because the scale is totally wrong. It's too big for my container, it's too overpowering, and I'm going to lose the delicate sort of nature of that container. But to counterbalance that long length on one side, I'm going to add in a little cluster of these Fat's Hedera. This is a variegated one, but you can get it in green, and in my garden it almost grows like a weed. I cut it and it keeps coming back, so it's a fabulous one to have. And I've counterbalanced that, so this is roughly visually half the length of this side here, which gives you that counterbalance. We'll have a look in the other camera as well. So foam in the middle, and then that lovely sort of fanned out group of leaves there on one side, counterbalancing the greenery on the opposite side. So if you are just joining, I've just realised there's 129 of you here today. So I shall be telling my son, 129 I had today, not 2 like you imagined. So if you've just joined, welcome. It's lovely for you to join me. The sun is shining in Wales. I know that there's rugby on if you're in the United Kingdom or you're part of the Six Nations or whoever's playing. Shows I have no knowledge of rugby. But flower arranging with me is far better. I hope you've all got a little gin and tonic or a glass of wine, or if you're like me, you're a tea drinker. Right. Now this one, this is Lonicera, which is the honeysuckle family, and not everybody's aware that you get a little delicate honeysuckle. And what I did this morning, while I was walking the dogs, was I popped out with my scissors in tow, and I sort of pinched a few little bits of greenery as I was walking up my road from my neighbour's garden. So this is I'm grateful and thankful to my neighbour who has this really pretty little honeysuckle, and I'm going to use this on that longer side so that I got a contrast again against that silver. This could be for a silver wedding. This would look lovely at the back of a church on the altar. You could do a matching pair on either side. I tend to instinctively go to the right-hand side when I'm doing an asymmetrical design, probably because I'm right-handed. You might go the opposite way. But that little bit of greenery there just helps to strengthen. Oh, I'm very sorry, I'm on the wrong camera. Let's go back to that one. And what I'll do at the same time, if I hold that up, you can see the shape more clearly. Long, Oh, somebody's having coffee and chocolate biscuits. Oh, lady after my dream. Yeah, thank you, Josephine. I just realised I'm on the wrong camera. But we're back to normal now. I got excited and carried away. So if we look at the side, I've got a front and a back. And I've got depth, and I've started to cover my foam there at the back before I completely fill in that foam. Sorry, I lost my train of thought then. I'm going to put my soft stemmed hellebores in before I've overcrowded that foam. If I'd filled the foam with lots of greenery, then it would be hard to find a place for my beautiful hellebores. And I've just realised that I've picked 3 different varieties. So we've got the variegated one, which is pink, and then I've got one that's almost like a double head. So what we're going to do, and I keep saying what we are going to do, you aren't doing anything, I'm doing everything. I don't know why I keep calling everything we, because there's only ever me here. What I'm going to do is, rather than put that whole stem in, which makes your eye go in all sort of different directions, I'm going to remove this top bit so that now your eye is drawn downwards. So I'm going to be able to use it to get your eye to draw downwards. Now, had I been more observant right at the very beginning, I would have realised that the flower is better draping to the left-hand side, whereas I'm going to be draping it from the right. And really speaking, it's probably not the best angle for this particular hellebore, but we'll go with the flow. So that one I'm going to remove because it's facing in the wrong direction. But these are going to drape fabulously over to the left, to the right hand side. Beautifully draped downwards, and because it's such a gorgeous flower, it's very delicate and very pretty. I don't want to over clutter it and add lots of other flowers in, because you're going to lose how amazing that flower is. What I think I'm going to do with this one is cut it a bit shorter, and then I will have that more staggered line of the flowers coming towards the middle. Now, don't forget, if you want to ask any questions, or if I'm not explaining anything very well, then please let me know. What I'm going to do is keep these ones, or this one, I've only got one, so that I'm bringing this colour to the left side as well. And now I'm going to filter through these gorgeous little hellebores. Now, if you are growing hellebore in the garden, I found that they took 2 or 3 years to get established before they really started to give me a really good display. I thought I'd lost them, and they weren't sort of going to come back. But they are really quite spectacular, and I don't have to do anything to them. They just come back up year after year. Now, if you have a look at that one, you can see it's beautifully draping down. I think it's your right side as you're looking at it. But I want it going in the opposite direction, so I'm going to cut it into 2. And I'm going to keep bringing them towards the middle. So we've got that lovely selection of flowers, drawing your eye up towards the focal point. Now, traditionally, I would say hellebore is quite an old-fashioned traditional flower, and you don't often see it used in more modern designs, so I think this is a nice contrast. And within, I don't know how many, we're nearly an hour, and I've only done 3 arrangements. I better go a bit quicker. Already you've seen 3 very different arrangements with the same container and a very different choice of flowers. So that brings me to my bit of cardboard, and you can see how lovely that shape is. I'm quite impressed with my piece of cardboard. I have got notes written on the back of things that I've got to remember to say, but look at that, beautiful horizontal shape. That would be lovely on a buffet table because it's raised above the food, and you could put it on the edge of the table. And now all I'm going to do is fill in with a very small amount of greenery. This one is golden oak. It's a native plant to the UK. Just going to take a few pieces in to cover my floral foam, and I'm not adding anything else. And you could put some dip in there if you wanted to make it a bit softer, but that's all I'm going to do. It possibly might need one more piece of greenery later that I'll fill through, but I won't go looking for it. I've already been here an hour. Right, so what do we think? I think that's really pretty, and we've got a really diverse range of arrangements. Now, if you didn't join me at the very beginning and you want to be part of my Facebook group, it's called Sharon's Innovations group and it's on Facebook. And I will photograph these and put them onto the Facebook group tomorrow so you can see close-ups of them. And if I've missed any questions, I will respond to them at a later date. Thank you for those of you who are commenting on my teaching ability. Thank you very much. Right, so we're going to change containers. And I'm going to pick the pace up a little bit. And this time we're going with the blue, very light blue colour. But I picked it because I thought it was quite spring-like and quite versatile. I'm above the edge of the container. So that means I'm going to put flowers or foliages in at the side. And it's another container from IKEA. Something small. Susan's asking, do hellebore last in foam? Yes, they do, but they have to have been conditioned properly first of all. Look after them at the very beginning and they should carry you through and last really well. Right, now the flowers I've got in this vase are all supermarket flowers. I bought a mixed bunch in the week and there was this gorgeous delphinium in it. And I thought I'll keep that to show you. It's a really good example of line. And then I've got some irises, and you'll all be familiar with irises. And I'm going to create a similar design to the gerbera, like a line arrangement, but with different choice of flowers. Right, so thank you, Susan. She's learned lots about the hellebores today. If I think of anything else, I will talk about them as I go along. Nice and tall again to carry that lovely blue colour all the way up to the top. And then I'm going to introduce some catkins. Now these were from the wholesaler, but this time of the year, you can buy them in the supermarket. And I'm going to go quite tall and quite narrow. Again, I haven't got a huge choice of flowers because I'm thinking that you might struggle if you're on a budget and you haven't got a huge amount of money to spend. You might be restricted to where you can buy your flowers from. But this delphinium was in a mixed bunch with some other flowers that I think are coming in the next design. Tall, quite narrow. I've also got a piece of the eucalyptus that was also in the mixed bunch. But what you're essentially looking to do is to repeat the shape of the flower. This is tall and narrow. Look for something that's tall and narrow. The eucalyptus is the same, it's tall and narrow. You're not going to get the same effect that I've got with the eucalyptus by replacing it with a fatsia. They have to look the same to create the same effect. Can I go this way? Yes, I can. So tall and narrow. Again, I haven't got a massive amount of flowers, but it goes to show what you can do. Now, this is a gerbera that's come from one particular supermarket. I think this was from Lidl. Excuse me. And then these are from Tesco. So if you're making a tall arrangement, you're going to need the Tesco ones. If you're making a small arrangement, a shorter iris is going to be good enough for you. And it's probably very confusing when you're buying flowers. It's there's a lot of information to take in. Always buy flowers when they're in tight bud if you can, but show in some colour. Don't buy your irises when they're fully open like this because they're not going to last. The reason I got them open is so that you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to bring a sort of line of the hydrangea, they're not hydrangeas, the irises down one side, similar to what I did with the gerbera, but with a different choice of flowers. And each time I add a flower, I'm looking to choose a flower that's more open so that your eye travels downwards, picking up a more open flower each time. So down we go. Let's get that bit of paper back. So tall and narrow this time. Now I was only planning on being here for an hour today, so if you've got things to do and you have to shoot off, then please do. But there are quite a few arrangements that I've got left to do if you want to stay with me. But there are still 138 of you. If you drop to nobody, then I'll finish early. Right, so my final big open iris needs to come more towards the front and just space them out. Remember with irises, that is going to open up really large. So I need to give those two a bit more space for that flower to open. We swap cameras a minute. You can see I've used all of that floral foam. I'm spreading my flowers out to make use of all that foam, and there's plenty of room down the side here where I can add in water to keep my foam hydrated. Right, so let's get back to the front and see what else I've got. Now this was also in the mixed bunch of flowers, and this is Trachelium, and I don't think I've ever used this on the YouTube channel. This is Trachelium, and it's this really soft, I was going to tell you what the shape was, but I can't remember now what it's called. Let's go back to that camera. And what I'm going to do with this one is cut it so it's really flat to the foam. So it covers my foam, brings some depth into the arrangement, and gives me a nice link of all the blues all the way down to the bottom. So I've sat it really, really close to the foam. And you can do that with a hydrangea head, a carnation, some roses, but it covers my foam and brings me some weight down to the bottom. And then I'm just going to fill in with my greenery. So I've picked up the pace on this one. I'm going a bit quicker now, less talking. As my school teacher would have said to me, less talking, Sharon, more productivity is what I would have been told. But there we are. So a bit of rosemary. Frost has had that a little bit on the end, but we're going to tuck that in at the back. That's going to help cover my foam, bring me some width and depth. This one is Pittosporum. I nearly said Euphorbia. Pittosporum tobira. And I'm going to cut it in the middle here so that I get two pieces from it. Don't waste that bottom bit. And just like I did with the Trachelium, I'm going to pop that right the way, tuck it right down low. I don't want to put it up here because visually it's going to draw your eye away. I'm going to use it tucked down, really low down. It's going to help cover all that foam around there, but without making that arrangement really wide and messy and heavy. And then just to finish it off, this is from my garden, a little bit of eucalyptus. And this, I don't want to drape this too much over the edge of the container because it won't visually balance with the other side of my arrangement. It'll make it too visually heavy on one side. But we're going to tuck little bits in, right down in the foam, so that all of my foam is covered. And it's really important in floral design that your foam is completely covered. And that's the first design in the blue container. So, what do we think of that one? I think that's lovely. That's my cup of tea. That is simple, fairly modern. When the iris is open, you will have more visual balance. It'll be, just reword that again. You will have more visual, what am I trying to say? Visually, it'll be a little bit more unbalanced because as these open, there'll be more weight added to the top, visual weight, but it'll still be quite pleasing to the eye. Quite simple. Hopefully you like that one. And we can stand that over in the back. So irises are fairly easy to look after. If you keep them out of water for a day or two, it'll stop them blowing open really quickly. But other than that, they're a fairly short-lived flower. 5 to 7 days is probably the maximum you'll get from them. But you can leave them lying flat on the floor, out of water for 1 or 2 days, just to give them chance, or slow down the opening, I should say, not give them chance to open, slow down the opening. Right, so let's grab another one. Now in that past arrangement, that little blue trachelium that I put down low at the base, you can do that quite well with the gerbera as well. So if your gerbera are flopping over at the top, tuck them in really low on the foam, because they'll still last and they'll still take water up from the foam. You just won't be able to use them tall and high in the arrangement. Right, so let's see what we've got next. Right, now then, I have an orange candle here, but no orange arrangement for it to go in, so I'm a bit confused now. So my next arrangement is going to be a all-round posy shape arrangement, so similar to this one, but this time I'm going to be doing it in foam. And I've got a candle to match my container. Pastel coloured candles are really fashionable at the moment, and I've got that candle cup holder which will support my candle in my block of foam. And for the eagle-eyed ones amongst you, you will notice that my foam is below the level of the container, so I won't have so much to cover, and this will be a little bit more simple and not quite so bulky at the bottom. Right, let's see what I've got. Now, for those of you who are keen gardeners, I'm hoping you're going to be really jealous of what I'm going to show you now, because in my garden I have this amazing mimosa and it smells delightful, and I bought it in a shrub. I have used this on, I think I've used this on YouTube. I bought it as a plant from Marks and Spencer's. I didn't think it was going to survive the British climate, but it's about 6 foot tall and it's gorgeous in flower arrangements. It's been conditioned really well overnight. The flowers are beautiful and so is the foliage. And rather than doing a design that's very patterned and very formal, I'm going to do a design that's looser, and I only have one flower of each type. So with the gerbera I had 5 gerbera, but this time I'm going to do a design where I've got just one of each flower, because sometimes when you buy mixed bunches from the supermarket you only get one flower type. So I thought I'd show you a way of doing a round arrangement, small and delicate, when you've sometimes only got that one flower of each variety. But what I am going to do is put in a couple of pieces of florist leather leaf. Bear with me 1 second. So this is florist leather leaf. I'm not worried if it's snapped over on the top, because I only need small pieces. That's going to help give me a nice shape to start with. And what you will hopefully see straight away is that I can't come out to the side because I don't have foam. So I'm going to come in more at this upright angle, and I'm looking to cut my pieces of greenery to roughly the same size as my container, and maybe half again, so quite small. And I'm not looking to create a pattern. I'm very randomly going to put them in. And then I'm going to add in this beautiful textured mimosa, remembering to pull off any greenery on the bottom, and I'm going to keep going. So I'm not looking to put the same on the left as the right. I'm just looking to completely cover my floral foam, and I've got a small amount of the rosemary. So we've got different textures, different colours. That one I think is a bit long. I'm going to cut him a bit shorter. So I've got a really good round shape. Now I'm guessing that some of you might have husbands at home or partners at home that are listening to the rugby, and they might be shouting very loud in the background. So I'm hoping you're enjoying what we're doing today. It's a beautiful day here in Wales. Typically that I picked the day where the sun is shining. And there we are, just a very simple all-round arrangement. I haven't gone too wide. This is fabulous for repeating this shape and this style and laying them down the centre of a table. So Christmas time you could do several of these and put them in a line. They look great at parties. If I just swap the camera over. Oh, my son, well, you're going to laugh now. My son has just joined with a smiley face, and he said a lot more than 2 viewers and a smiley face and a heart. Told you I'd have more than 2, Lucas. You didn't believe me. So you can see a nice round shape. Hopefully next time we'll have more than 2, and then that'll really shut him up. Right, so this is a beautiful big white rose. This again was out of the mixed bench. I'm just going to remove some petals off the outside. Take it quite short so that it's nestled in amongst the greenery. A great one to do with leftover flowers, or if you've had a bouquet delivered and you want to cut them down and use them in another style of arrangement. This is a really versatile one. All I'm going to do here is tuck in little pieces of flowers with hopefully a contrast in shape and a contrast in colour. So what I don't want to do is put a yellow flower next to the yellow mimosa. I want to try and space out the colours so we have a contrast between them. So cut this down so I get lots of pieces. Yes, we can laugh, can't we? He set me up this morning because I was really worried that I wasn't going to be able to connect in the right place. So he has been here this morning and made sure I'm connected. And I did say to him, what happens if I get a few hundred people? And he said, oh, Mum, you probably only get 2. So a little cluster there of the little pom-pom chrysanthemums. And this was also in that mixed bunch, along with the statice. And you can generally tell that it's a grade of flower, or a lower grade of flowers, because the stems are much shorter. Florist grade flowers are much longer. So what I need to do here now is think about putting something next to that white rose that's going to give me a contrast in colour. And with very small choice of flowers, you could easily pick up a little mixed bunch, £3 or £4 in the supermarket. I've made quite a pretty design. Imagine this for a gift for somebody that's had a baby. It could sit at the side of the bed. You could do it in pinks or blues. And what I'm going to do with the jip is, rather than like put it everywhere like a big cloud over the top, I'm just going to put a group of it on one side. So everything is grouped together in the same colour and variety of flowers. And this is what we would call grouping. You could do, if you had 2 roses, you would just put them opposite one another. But that, I think, for a small little arrangement, Christmas table arrangement, you could do that for Easter with some little Easter eggs. And I have got this little Easter, it says hello spring. I don't think spring is quite on us yet, but I'm just going to pop that in to the back. If you are a commercial florist and you want to do small little gifts for Mother's Day for children, then these little containers you can pick up fairly inexpensively. Not a massive amount of flowers in there, but that would be a really lovely gift for somebody to give to their mum, for their teachers. Thank you gifts. I think that's really lovely. I'm just going to do that same thing. Bring up that white bit of card behind, and you can see that really lovely shape. Very, very simple to do. Let's just show you in the other camera as well. I'll turn that round. So clustered, grouped together. Very, very basic selection of flowers. And if you are a florist, then this is a good way of earning an extra bit of money. When you've done wedding flowers and you maybe have bits and pieces left over, or if you've done funeral flowers and you have those odd little bits and pieces to get left over, this is what we would call an impulse buy. So you would make maybe 2 or 3 of these, sit them on your shop counter, put them on your Facebook page or your socials, and advertise them for sale, and it gives you an extra bit of money in from flowers that would normally go to waste. And if you're doing big arrangements and you've got bits and pieces left over, then that's a really simple one to make as well. And very different, so same container, but a very different style to the first one. Okay, so I can't see any questions coming through. It's 155 of you now, so we're going up, which is quite nice. Right, so I've got a blue container again, and I wasn't planning on going for an hour and a half. I thought an hour would be ample, but we'll keep going. You're still watching, so you must be enjoying. And the last of the blue containers, this time I've got floral foam, but I've still used, or I've used again, that vine. I should really have kept a bit to show you, but this is Molenbeekia vine. It's exactly the same one as I did in the first arrangement, but this time I've got foam in the middle and I've interspersed or entwined the bear grass. Let's just grab a bit of bear grass. So if you're not familiar with bear grass, let me get the bunch. Bear grass looks like this, and this is how it comes to a florist shop. Trim the bottom off and stand it in a bucket of water. I always leave the elastic band on there because it keeps it neat and tidy. And what I've done, I've started it because it's quite a lengthy process. Place your stem end into the foam, and then, oh, wrong camera, let's just go around, and then feed it around that vine and back in and feed it through. Now you can do this in a larger version. I'm not going to do it today because the container is a little bit small, but you can do the same thing but weave your tulips around. If you had a bigger container, you could place your stem end into the foam and then swing them round to create a really nice design. The reason I'm not doing it today is, as I mentioned, the container's too small, and ideally it's best to leave your tulips out of water for about 24 hours because they're more pliable. You can also do that with arum lilies because they're nice and soft. But what I'm going to do is almost make like a spring sort of meadow theme. And I'm going to bring everything almost parallel. If you imagine a meadow of flowers or a field of tulips, everything will be growing upwards. And that's what I'm going to do today. Start with pussy willows, catkins, straight up. Then we've got some birch. And I often get asked, you know, where does inspiration come from for floral designs? And I've been a florist, I don't like to admit it, but I'm now 55 and I've been a florist since I was 17. So I've seen inspiration, you know, I've watched international designers, local designers, growers. I basically live, sleep, breathe flowers. If I'm not arranging flowers, I'm reading about them, or I'm at the garden centre. So sometimes inspiration comes from containers, sometimes it comes from the season, sometimes it comes from the flowers that I've seen at the suppliers, sometimes it comes from the shape of my container. And you've really just got to keep reading magazines, looking for things that inspire you. It might be the shape of a container, it might be a colour combination. I like looking at colours in clothing. If you look at accessories and scarves in the supermarkets and the high-end fashion shops, look to see how they've combined it. What colour have they mixed it with? What colour is the main flower in the design? So you can find inspiration from anywhere. Look at shapes of buildings, shapes of bridges, colours in leaves. There's so many places you can find inspiration from, and it's just something that you've got to keep doing over and over again until you're happy. I'm doing quite formal arranging, so I'm following rules and patterns. We look at the elements and principles of design, and I try and incorporate all of the elements and principles of design into an arrangement. But it depends really where you're from and what rules you follow, because I tend to follow British traditional flower arranging rules. But there are lots of other countries in the world that follow different sets of guidelines and proportions, scale and balance and that type of thing. And there isn't just one way of flower arranging. My way is not the only way. It is the best way, obviously. But you can gain inspiration from anybody. Watch lots of different designers. You'll always pick up hints and tips from different people. Right, now I've covered the base with rosemary. And rosemary's got a grey-blue tinge, which is really lovely with my grey container. And then to pick up the colours of my vine, I've extended the height there with some birch. And I use birch quite a lot, but this time of the year, that could be any twig in your garden that doesn't have any leaves on it. Could be dried and painted birch. This time of the year, you might have dogwood, red or lime green. And this time, I'm going to make what we call a vegetative parallel. So this is just arranging the tulips as they would grow in nature. And I'm leaving them a fairly similar height because that's how they would be in the garden. And I'm just creating this very natural style of arranging. It's not everybody's cup of tea, this style of arranging, but it is a style of formal flower arranging and formal floristry. And I'm just going to do 5 tulips. Could be 5 irises, could be 10 roses. We don't want to go too big because the container is quite small. Again, a very striking design with not a huge amount of flower content in it. Great for the back of the church again. You could do matching pairs, you could do a row of them in front of the altar, which would really look quite spectacular. And then if I'm patient enough, I'm going to add in some bear grass to make the design a little bit more free flowing and a bit more rustic. Now, when I trained as a florist, bear grass was quite a new material to use. And if you were anybody in the flower arranging world, you had bear grass in your shop. And we used to put it in everything. Huge amounts of it in floral designs. Hand tieds, it was in bridal bouquets, you name it, it was everywhere. But we don't seem to use it a great deal anymore. But I like it because it gives that really loose, free-flowing shape. Now, if you wanted to, I'm not doing it today, but I do have some little blue Easter eggs here. Oh, I will do it. I'm just going to nestle them into the base. Hopefully when I'm talking, they won't fall out. But we'll just place those in at the bottom to give you a little Easter vibe and that lovely Easter feel. So, but wild that one, but a really simple arrangement to do. Let's just slide it over. I'm in reverse today, so I'm the opposite way to the way I normally am. So, what do you think about that one? Let's go up that way. Wild, natural, rustic, beautiful. And with tulips, they continue to grow after they've been cut from the plant, so they are likely to grow up to another 4 inches after they've been cut from the garden or you've picked them up at the wholesalers. But again, a minimal quantity of flowers. If you haven't got the grass, don't worry too much about it. But not a lot of material in there for, I think, quite a sort of striking design. Right, it's 162 of you now. Again, more, not less. Right, I am going to do another one. I think I've got another 2 to do, so it's not too bad. Oh, I might have more than 2, but if you're still here, I'm going to keep going. If you've had enough, just log off and you can catch it on replay. So this is a glass vase. Again, it's from IKEA, and it's a fairly standard circular shape. You could have one at home that's square, because we went through a phase in the 90s where we had lots of glass cubes to use. I'm going to grab my flowers. So I'm back. So it's underneath, it looks like that. And I've used a beautiful piece of lacy sort of ribbon. This vintage, soft, delicate look is very in fashion at the moment. I've wrapped it around the outside. It's nothing new. We've probably seen this lots of times before. And tied it with a contrasting piece of ribbon. And I thought this would be lovely as a gift for somebody that's maybe getting married, or you could do it as a table centre for a wedding. Thank you, Joan. And I'm not going to use floral foam in this one. I'm just going to use water. And I won't fill it yet, just in case we have an overflow. But I've gone with this beautiful soft colour combination. And in Tesco at the moment, so again, if you're in the UK, we've got quite good supermarkets that sell flowers. They're selling a mixed bunch where you have these gorgeous spray roses. Look at that for a spray rose from a supermarket. And it comes with, I think there were 3 stems of the spray rose. Look at that. Isn't that just gorgeous? I'd be quite happy with a gift of just these. And they came with white roses included in the bunch. And I'm just going to add a little bit of gypsophilia in to give me a base, and then I'm going to arrange them very naturally. So in design number 1, I used some foliage to give me that cushion effect at the bottom. Lots of people struggle at home with arranging flowers in a vase. My first tip would be to find something that's going to give you a bit of a cushion. So it could be greenery, it could be gyp. You could do that sellotape grid across the front. I'm just going to bend down and get some greenery. And then if you struggle to arrange flowers, if you've got something that will support the flowers in the vase at the beginning, your flowers are going to rest against the greenery or the gyp, and they won't flop to the outside of the vase. Right, so what I'm going to do, I've got that florist leather leaf again, and I quite often talk about flat foliage and bunchy foliage, and that is an example of something that's flat. Flat foliage works much better on the outside of a design than it does for filling in and hiding floral foam, because it's flat and it's got no depth, no density. It's not bunchy and it doesn't cover a big gap. But what it does do is frames your arrangement really nicely. So I've got 3 pieces. I'm roughly looking at going twice the height, or at the same height as my container again. And I'm just going to weave 3 pieces around the outside of the vase. And I'm just thinking, is that a little bit too long? This one seems to be much longer, so we're going to cut that a bit shorter. Now I've used 3 pieces. 3 or 5 again is better than 4, because 4 tends to square it off. But I'm just really looking to create a bit of a framework to hold everything into place. And then I'm going to give a nice clean cut to the bottom of my rose. I'm just going to estimate where the height is going to be. Always cut it too long if you're nervous, because you can always cut it shorter. And I've cut a rose at an angle because that's going to open up more surface area. There are lots of videos on social media at the moment where people are bashing the bottoms of the stems with hammers, boiling them in hot water, and none of those methods are particularly good long term for flowers. Having said that, I am currently over in that end of the studio running a bit of an experiment where I've put some flowers in the old wives' tales. So I've used copper coins, I've used aspirin. Somebody suggested I used vodka, but there's no way was I going to be using my vodka in a flower arrangement. So I'm telling you not to hammer the bottoms of your stems. But at the moment, the roses that have had the stems hammered are looking quite good. So I might review that information in a week's time. But the best way, or the way we've been taught and told, is to always cut with a clean, sharp object, scissors or a knife, and cut it at an angle. And that encourages the water to go up the flower stem as quickly as possible. We used to put things in hot water years ago when rose quality wasn't very good, but we don't tend to do it anymore. I don't feel that there's a need to do it anymore. Right, so this one is Status. This also came in the mixed bunch with spray rose, and I think it was only £10. And as a florist, I shouldn't really be encouraging you to go to a supermarket, but a bunch of roses and a filler flower for £10 I think is a bargain. Right, this one is Status. This is going to dry beautifully for you as well. And what's happening is because I put that jip in the middle and I've got that greenery on the outside, it's supporting everything in place. Which way have we got to go? This way. It's so confusing, you know. I don't know whether my left is my right and my right is my left. Now in the bunch were the roses that were white. But what I decided to do for a bit of contrast was to add in some pink. So this is also a supermarket rose. And what I'm going to do for ease is I'm going to cut one to get that to the right height. So that's a lovely size. And now I'm going to cut all my other roses to match that one. So let's just get them all in a line. And then I know when I put them in the arrangement that they are all going to be the same height. And if you're unsure about how to get the flowers the same height, and if you cut them all in one go, then you're guaranteed to have them the same length. And then we're going to remove, I'm doing it again, we are going to remove, I am going to remove the foliage and any damaged petals from the top. Now the pink rose, well, all of these flowers in this bunch have been here with me for maybe 3 or 4 days because I wanted to get them to start opening before I showed them to you. I didn't want them to be too tight in bud. So they are showing a lovely shape and they are opening up really well. I'm taking the foliage off the bottom and I'm creating that posy effect without having to worry about using foam or chicken wire. That little bit of jip that I placed in at the beginning and those few pieces of greenery around the outside gives me that lovely circular shape. Now, one thing we often do when we're arranging flowers is we look at them from the top and we make this beautiful display from the top and then we forget about this underside here. And because I'm looking at the camera, I have lots of greenery around here, which would benefit from having a few little roses. So what I'm going to do with the white ones is cut them a bit shorter and place them on the outside so that we have more colour around the bottom of the vase here. It's just that one there. But what you need to consider while you're arranging flowers is where are they going to be positioned at home. If they're on a coffee table and you're looking down on them, then you want the emphasis to be on the top here. If they're going to be on an altar, or you're putting them on a sideboard at home and you're looking at them from that angle, then you need to think about bringing some flowers much lower down so that visually you have something pleasing to look at. Now, all of these white roses were in this mixed bunch, but I have only seen it in Tesco, so I do travel the supermarkets quite often just to see what flowers they've got. So if there's anything new or exciting, I can talk about it with you. And then I've got a few roses that came out of the mixed bunch. Remember that? The delphinium that we looked at in the beginning, that also had some white roses in it. There's a slightly bigger white rose, and I'm going to feed these more towards the middle. Bit shorter down so that we get layers and levels and everything has chance to open. But this one I think is fab for table centres. It could be a gift for somebody, and it looks very opulent and very expensive, but it has probably cost me about less than £15 to put that together, not including the vase itself. And just to heighten it a tiny bit, I'm going to put in these taller white birch twigs. Just going to bring it to a bit of a new dimension. Oh, we're up to 171. I wonder if my son is still here. Lucas, we're on 171 now. Much more than 2. Right, so that's my final little addition to that arrangement there. That I think is absolutely amazing. I do love a pastel arrangement. I do love really tropical flowers as well. That I think is gorgeous. I'm going to leave that there a sec while I go and grab my final. Oh, there might be another 3. Do you want to stay around for another 3? If not, jog on. But we're going to do final 3. If I bring my piece of cardboard up as well, you can see that more clearly. Gorgeous, even if I say so myself. Right, this is going to be a very quick one. So if you want to go and grab yourself a quick cup of tea, this one isn't going to take me a long time to bake. Same glass vase, so we're looking at 3 very different designs using the glass vase, and this time you'll see I've added some moss into the bottom. Now this is ordinary sphagnum moss, and here in Wales we have lots of moss, but if you haven't got moss you could use something that's quite natural, or you would have to resort back to something like coir. I'll say that bit again. If you haven't got moss and you can't get hold of moss, think about bamboo matting or coir matting, because that will work quite well. And this time I've got little plants. And what I'm going to do with the plants is remove them from their pot. If I was doing this for a customer or for a gift for somebody, I would have given those a really good watering before I did this. But because I'm showing you, I didn't want to get in too much of a mess. So I've made a cushion again of moss, and what I'm going to do is sit my little daffodil plants, my narcissi plant, in my container. It's another sort of cheap way of recycling a glass vase or making a gift for somebody. Now I'm just thinking this was a stupid design to be doing because now my hands are going to be stinking. So this probably wasn't the best plan for today. They're nice and secure in the container. And I'm going to fill in the top. So, we're up to 175 now, so we're getting more and more as the afternoon goes on. So it's a good job I didn't do an hour session, because all you late arrivals would have missed it. Which might be a good point to ask the question, what time suits you better? I've started this at 2 o'clock because I thought it was sort of after lunch and you might be back from doing your morning chores. But if you would prefer a later demonstration, or you would prefer a morning, or you would prefer a weekday, pop it in the comment box, because my plan is to do more live videos like this. Let's just wipe my hands. But I obviously need a bit of feedback from you as to how long you would like it to last and what day of the week and what time suits you better. Now that there is a really simple design to give to somebody as a gift, and I'm just going to add in some, what I think is larch. Oh no, I'm going to take that back because I don't think it is larch now, but I will let you know. I'm going to prop a little bit of that in, and the moisture from the moss is going to keep those larch twigs alive long enough for the daffodils to open. It's also almost like a living exhibit, so you could do this in an area where the design has to last a long period of time. So if you do corporate work and you have to do designs for hotels or restaurants, then this is going to last quite a long time, because the daffodils have got to open. And it could be it could be tulips, it could be hyacinths, it could be anything in there really that's going to work. I did originally think about doing a jasmine plant, but it hasn't opened as much as I would like it to, so I'm going to keep that for something else. So keep watching. And what I'm also going to do now, I wasn't planning on doing this, but I'm going to add a bow because I think it would benefit from a bow. And I'm so confused when I look in the camera because I need to go that side. Not like when I'm filming for YouTube and you're on the opposite side, so it's all a bit confusing. I'm going to swap cameras and I'm going to make myself a bow. Now this camera that looks downwards is a bit slower to respond, doesn't adjust quite so quickly. And I'm going to do 4 loops with the polka dot ribbon. So we get 4 loops like that. Cut that with my scissors. So we've got 4 loops, not 4 candles, 4 loops. And then I'm going to use this more vibrant colour green. That's actually green, it looks yellow on the camera. And I'm going to place another 4 loops behind the polka dot one. Now I do totally understand if that is hard to pick up on the camera. That is how I would make a bow, and I would use florist wire down through the middle to hold it all into place. Bearing in mind that I've made hundreds of these in my lifetime, so I can almost do those with my eyes closed. And I'm going to sit that in the front. And I think I'm also going to tie some ribbon round here. What a lovely springtime gift. I would be chuffed to bits to have that sent to me. It's a bit untidy because I'm obviously trying to do it and talk on the camera at the same time. It doesn't have to be the glass vase. You could do this with the little containers that I used at the beginning because they would hold one plant really well. But isn't that quite striking for two daffodil plants? Hello! Rustic, gorgeous, spring-like, very, very pretty. A gift that's going to keep on giving. And you could add a little Easter egg or some Easter decoration on there as well. Yeah, so somebody's laughing at my 4 candle joke. So I hope you like that one. And all those three there, can you see those? Yes, you can. All those three there are in the same container, but they're very different designs. So it's hopefully a way of you understanding how you can make different arrangements in different containers. Well, who would have believed we'd be here for nearly 2 hours? I'm loving what I'm doing this afternoon. I'm glad you've stuck with me. There are now 182, which is far more than I was expecting. Please ask questions. If I've missed anything, I will catch it at a later date. And for those of you that are joining later, there are lots of courses on the website sharondower.com. There is a supermarket flower arranging course which is for 5 weeks. I think it's £95, and it will teach you how to arrange supermarket flowers. It shows you how to care and condition those flowers and prepare your foam and all that type of thing. And there are hand-tied courses on there. And then I have a very small private Facebook group called Sharon's Innovations Group on Facebook. Please come and join us. It's a very friendly community of flower arrangers and florists. We like to share tips and help each other out. And if you come over there, answer 3 questions to join, just so that I know you're not a robot and you're not spamming me. And then you'll be able to see close-up photos of what I've done today. Right, just 1 second. Now, for those of you that weren't at the beginning, I have had a new haircut. I do quite often have short hair, but I haven't had short hair for a long time. And I do also sometimes have long hair. So you might see a photograph of me from many years ago where I got a different hairstyle. And I also bought, I don't know whether I said this at the beginning, I think I did. I also bought myself a new dress for today. But I feel like I should be in a hoedown, or I should be on Little House on the Prairie. But it's quite comfortable to wear. Right, now these little felt containers are also from IKEA, and they have a really summery pattern to them with little daisies. There are lots of containers like this in supermarkets like Tesco and the cheaper shops like B&M and Home Bargains here in the UK. And I thought I'd give you 2 ideas on how to arrange them. And then I'm done. I've only got 2 left to do, and then you can go home and go and do your washing or your ironing or whatever you do on a Saturday. The only issue with these is they're felt and they're not waterproof. So what I've done here is I've put some cellophane underneath my floral foam to keep it, to stop it rather from leaking out into the container. So this is cream cellophane. That could be a plastic bag or some cling film, but we just need to make sure that the water isn't leaking out. And even though this is a round container, because I've forced in a square piece of, or a rectangular piece of foam, I've almost made the container square. But that's quite good in a way, because it means it's a flexible container to use. Right, so the penultimate arrangement, and this time I've got some alstroemeria. Hang on, we're all tangled up. So in the supermarkets, there are always alstroemeria to buy. They are really cheap to get hold of, or they are here in the UK. I don't know how much they are in other parts of the world. And they come in a real range of colours. One of the reasons that I very rarely arrange with alstroemeria is because this small stem with a flower on is very weak, and they're quite hard to arrange with if you're not using the full stem. They work fabulous in big arrangements, and you can use the thick stem, and they work really well as in a hand tied, because you keep them on the stem. If you are going to use them, try not to cut them and use them as individual flowers. It just doesn't work. It's a complete and utter disaster. I felt these containers, this goes back a little bit to where I get inspiration from and how I think about making arrangements. if you look at this container, it says light and airy to me. It says summer, spring, fields, rustic, dainty, delicate. So what I tried to do was to think about flowers that would complement it. I didn't feel that adding a really heavy flower in there was going to work. It needed to be something soft and delicate. And what I'm using first of all to give me a bit of height is privet. So if you're in the UK, privet is a shrub we quite often use for hedging between properties. The reason I was looking behind me was because I've done something similar to this with the tulip design. If you look at the base, these are called visual lines. They're making your eye travel up and down. The grass at the bottom is almost like a parallel arrangement, and I'm going to copy what I can see in the base. I don't want to put a triangle in it because that's a really formal shape. I don't want to put a horizontal design because it's not following on from the container. So my inspiration for this arrangement is the shape of the base. And then I thought, well, a yellow or a white or a green colour combination is going to work well because that's the colours that are in the base. I thought Alstroemeria I haven't used, I don't use a great deal of, and they work very well as a straight up and down arrangement. So this is another version of a parallel arrangement. And if you've traditionally learned parallel arrangements, we all think that, or we're all taught that a parallel arrangement is that one European design where you have a very structured design with solids, not with solid spaces, with empty spaces in between. And a parallel can be lots of other things. It's a style of arranging, not one particular flower arrangement. So what I'm doing is repeating what I see at the bottom and bringing the flowers up in that same parallel fashion. Now I've made this facing you, so I might have to adjust it slightly. And I'm going to go nice and tall because these Alstroemeria really love to show off those beautiful flower heads, and the branches that I've put in between almost give them a bit of support, and we're creating those visual lines. Now if you like traditional arranging, you really won't like this gap here in the middle, but we're allowed to do that. We're allowed to leave space. This is negative space, this is positive space, this is positive space. We're allowed to do that because it makes more emphasis on the flowers that are at the top. And there is lots of heads on those Alstroemeria, and I want to give space for them to open up. I don't want to squash them all together and add in lots of flowers around them because it's going to make it look quite cluttered. All I need to do now is to cover my foam at the bottom. This is Cryptomeria. I nearly said Garrya elliptica, which looks nothing like this at all. And you can tell I've been talking now for 2 hours because I'm starting to get tired. This is Cryptomeria. It looks a little bit like conifer, but what I thought it did was give me like a grass effect. So it would complement the leaves of my container as they come up from the base. So I'm going to pop a few of these in, and then I've got a couple of bits of ivy. Now this is trailing ivy that is this is from my own garden. But what I'm going to do, instead drape it over the front, because if we drape it over the front, we're going to hide that lovely pretty pattern. I'm going to use the ivy upright, as if it's climbing up my twigs. It's climbing up from the base, it's reaching up for the sunlight, and it's continuing those lines. So you hear me talk a lot about lines. It's one of the elements of design. And line creates movement, makes your eye move upwards. So instead of hiding, and I'm looking at the back of this, I've got no idea what it looks like from the front. instead of hiding that base and that really pretty pattern that's on the bottom, and drawing your eye up from the base, making your eye travel up towards the top, following the lines. I heard somebody call them lanes the other day, which I thought was quite a good explanation. If you think about travelling down the motorway and you stick to your lane, then these are lanes that are making your eye travel upwards. And I'm just going to fit a bit of moss in the bottom as well. I don't, you know, it's a simple design. We're not going to clutter it up with really contrived plant material. It's very simple. I'm going to show you it close up. Oh, we're up to 191 viewers now. Do you think we can get to 200 before I finish? So, beautifully done. That moss you can reuse time and time and time again. And gently fill up the floral foam to keep it hydrated. Try not to spill it out over the edge. I tried to find plastic dishes and saucers that would sit inside, but I didn't have anything the right size. So that's why I ended up with that plastic liner. But how's that? So I've got one more before we go home. I'm going to be exhausted tonight. I'm going to sit and eat chocolate and have a cup of tea. Right, we've run out of space now. We'll put that on the floor over here. So, if you're still with me, 191 of you, we're on to the final design. And I've got the same container again. Again, it's because I feel it's important for you to see how you can create a versatile range of designs from the same container. Now, I did start by saying that this base is quite rustic, quite simple, and therefore I wanted to follow that theme through. But I'm going to do something a bit more modern in it and a bit more contemporary, but without losing that springtime summer feel. I've got some twisted or contorted hazel. So again, it's lines, it's repeating the lines that we've got in the bottom. It's making your eye continue all the way up. If we went this way, it's a bit conflicting with the base and it's quite confusing. So this is your ordinary contorted hazel. This is quite easy to grow in the garden, or you can order it from a florist shop. And I'm going to create a nice bit of height in there. And I'm going to do a design similar to the gerbera line arrangement. So something that's not too cluttered and not too fussy. I'm just going to move my flowers over here because I'm not used to working with them on that side. Right, so today I've got some freesia. We don't often arrange with freesia, but they are one of my favourite flowers. I love a freesia. And again, it's the shape of it is quite, or the line that it gives you is quite strong. So we have lines on this side, and then I'm going to use my freesia on the opposite side to give me lines on the opposite side. I'm not going as tall as I am with the willow or the hazel. So this is contorted hazel. You might have willow in the garden, it works just as well. And I've got 3 of these, and these are left over. These are actually supermarket ones. I have a class here on a Wednesday and they're left over from the Wednesday class. But I'm going to make almost like 2 parallel groupings. So you've got a grouping on this side and a grouping on that side. I'll bring my trusty bit of cardboard because you can see it more clearly. Quite a contemporary looking design so far, but does coordinate and complement my base really nicely. My shoelace is undone, so I keep standing on it all the time. And then to cover my base, I've got one very large hydrangea head, which is from the supermarket. If you can't get hydrangeas, it could be gerbera, it could be moss, foliage, or a carnation. But I want something that's really simple for the bottom and something that's not going to clutter up the arrangement. And instead of putting it in as a whole head, because it's quite large, I'm going to break it down into a few little pieces. And I'm going to tuck them in really low down. This is groundwork, basing, it's what we do in funeral work. Which brings me to the point, we have got a new funeral course starting online at the beginning of March, if anybody wants to participate. So what I'm doing here is grouping it really close to the floral foam. It's very white and bright and shiny, but it gives me a lovely coverage without my design becoming too fussy. If that was greenery on the bottom, it possibly would look quite messy. So that whole head has covered my base beautifully. You've got lots of negative space in here again with plenty of room around the flowers. I'm not planning on using the foliage from a hydrangea, but the foliage for hydrangeas can be used either on the stem or as individual leaves. They work really well and they last really well as well. They can work beautifully in a hand tied as foliage. So if you've got a hydrangea bush in the garden, it's quite versatile. And then for this arrangement, I've just got 3 gerbras, which I'm going to continue more down towards the base. It doesn't want to go where I want to put it. I'm feeding it through the hydrangeas. It's got a mind of its own. And I'm continuing that yellow colour down, right down. Oh, do you see what I did then? I just snapped that one. Luckily I've got a spare. With gerbera, try, if you're putting it into foam, feed it through from the bottom rather from the top, otherwise you'll do what I just did and snap it. So very, very gently feed it through so that we've got that yellow colour brought all the way down to the bottom. And what I'll do with the one that I snapped, I'll put it towards the back. I'll tuck it down quite low so it's in amongst the hydrangea. Let's show you on that one. Oh, wrong one. That's the back. And if I go all the way around, see this camera's in reverse as well, so I don't know where I'm going, left, right, left, right. So that's the back and that's the front. But you can see that one hydrangea head has completely covered the base. And I quite often tell you, don't use white in floral design because it can be quite visually heavy. But we've got white in the base, so I just wanted to pick up the white that was in the base. And I'm just going to spread this out a little bit to give me more space. Tuck up my hydrangea. I think I'm quite happy with that one. I have got left over from the other design, just this little set of button chrysanthemums, this nice yellow colour. So I'm going to use this up rather than it go to waste. And I think I'm going to put it down low. High or low? We're going to go low. Little buttons close in amongst that hydrangea at the bottom so it doesn't get wasted. And it gives me a really lovely little bit of detail down at the bottom. Right, and I think I'm just glancing over to my right hand side and my preparation table is completely empty. So that means I'm done. Only an hour and 10 minutes longer than I thought I was going to be. But you've stuck with me. There's 194 of you here at the moment. We'll get up the white card for you to see. Now that is quite a contemporary design, and this has been done using 3/5/8 proportions, so we're not using those equal proportions. We're using what we call internal triangles, which is more European styles of designing, or European rules of designing. But I quite like that. I quite like minimalist, but in fact I like everything. I could never pick my favourite style because I wouldn't have a clue what to pick. Right, so let's just slide that over to one side, and I'll bring back that one so you can sort of compare the two very different designs but both in the same container. Let's get that one over there. Right, so I'll have to put my glasses on to read these. Thank you. I'm glad you've thoroughly enjoyed. Lots of nice comments. Yeah, I agree, Josephine. It's far better watching me than doing the ironing. So some of you are agreeing that 2 p.m. is a good time. I probably, under normal circumstances, wouldn't go on for quite a long period of time because I will get tired and I will forget things and I won't use good vocabulary because I'm getting tired. But I'm delighted that the first live went according to plan. It's 195 of you here at the moment, not quite 200, but far better than the 2 my son suggested. If there's anything that you would like to see in a live, then pop it in the comment box. This live will be available for you to catch up and watch indefinitely. I think it stays on the YouTube channel, and it'll be there until I decide I want to remove it. But if there's anything you want to see, anything you want me to talk through, then I'm more than happy to do it in a live session. My plan at the moment is to be doing one once a month, and it'll probably be the last Saturday of each month. So put a date in your diary for the next month, and we'll hopefully see you back. I'm glad you stuck with me for the 2 hours. Roz is saying she likes my new haircut and my makeup. My makeup is normal makeup. It's probably that my hair is short, so I probably look a bit different. And I have got, my husband will be pleased because we had our 25th wedding anniversary this year, or last year, 2023. And I've got my anniversary earrings on, which you can see now because my hair is short. So he will be delighted. Thank you. I've got to find out now how I'm gonna disconnect you, because you might end up here for the rest of the day. I'm hoping that I can find the button that says end live. But thank you so much. I've really enjoyed being here. Far better than sitting home watching the rugby. And I'm going home now for a nice cup of tea. I look forward to chatting with you again on my private Facebook group, which is Sharon's Innovations Group. I look forward to the next tutorial, which will be due tomorrow on YouTube. And we'll see you very soon. So keep commenting. You can comment for as long as you can, even if I've disconnected the broadcast, and I will catch up with any questions that I've missed over the next couple of days. So thank you very much. I am really grateful. When I started the YouTube channel, I didn't expect it to be quite as big as it is. It's grown very rapidly, and I'm hoping that we can keep building and keep growing it, because I really enjoy doing the videos and the tutorials. But it can only grow if you give me feedback and you tell me what you want to see and what you enjoy and what things you want to learn. I mentioned right at the very beginning that I started the channel because I felt there was a lack of education for flower arrangers that wanted to do something for a hobby. It sort of started during lockdown, but I didn't really have the time to get it up and running properly. But I know flower arranging brings so much joy to so many people, whether it's supermarket flowers, florist flowers, or whether you grow things from your garden. I love being with you, I love chatting to you, and I love having the feedback from you all and knowing where you're all joining me from. Please send me photographs or share them on the Facebook group if you copy any of the designs. And I love knowing where you're from, so if you haven't already told me where you're from, let me know, and I'll see you very soon. You can all sit and laugh now while I try and disconnect you and switch you all off. But thank you, everybody. See you soon. Bye for now.